Hello, everyone. My name is Dara, and this is Dear Hallmark. This is another installment in the Dear Hallmark Masterclass where we are going behind the lens and we're talking to directors and writers and producers and all of the people that work behind the scenes of the movies that we love to get a peek into their everyday life and what it is to be in their role. And today I have the esteemed pleasure of talking to Miss Ruby Munro. She has been the director for Miss Miracle, as well as the most recent A Fabled Holiday that aired this past Christmas season. So, Ruby, thank you so much for coming into the home of Dear Hallmark. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and thank you so much for the invitation, Dara. It's such a pleasure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I want to start off with an icebreaker question. So, if you just got $1 bajillion right now, it could go anywhere in the world, where would you visit?
Oh, well, that's a tough one because I am a bit of a wanderer. You might notice that by some of the things in my background. Um, I would go to Japan.
Oh, do tell. Why Japan?
So I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, which has the second largest concentration of cherry blossom trees anywhere in the world, and the biggest
Oh,
concentration is in Japan. And it's long, long, long been on my list to wander through miles and miles of nothing but overflowing cherry trees.
just even thinking about that takes your breath away.
We have them here, like in Vancouver, you can go for blocks, like 5, 6 block stretches where the entire
Mm.
canopy that goes over a road is nothing but pink blossoms.
Oh,
Now, if you add that to going somewhere like Japan and you get to experience a culture at the same time as being in all of that beauty that takes in all of your senses to fairly participate, then I don't know, Japan sounds fascinating to me.
it does. It is, I bet. Oh my word. I
As
would,
somebody
yes,
that as a visual artist,
yes.
anywhere I want to go in the world has a visual aspect to it first and foremost. And tied in with that is the culture that has created that visual
I
always.
love that. I love that. Is there another country you can think about that affects you in that way, aesthetically and
I've
visually?
been to so many, it's crazy. I'm in love with India,
Mm,
like
mm-hmm.
in love with India. It's a massive, massive country, and its diversity, much like America and much like Canada in the size we are, it's diversity from top to bottom because it's much longer than it is wide. Is as different as going from Washington to Alabama,
Mm. Wow.
both in its geography, its topography, the way people dress, the food changes, the cultural regimes change.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, but it's a culture that what I love about it, I went to work there in 2001. What I
Mm-hmm.
love about it is the culture that's built completely and entirely around family,
Mm, mm-hmm.
entirely around family.
Mm. I love that.
No choice that you make is not family first.
Yeah. Yeah. We could learn a
It's
lot from a
not, I
lot
would
of
not be able
countries.
to say the same thing about North America.
That's
You know,
what
we grow up I want to move as far away from my parents as I can, or
yeah.
that job's so intriguing, I'm willing to leave my family behind. I'm not saying it's wrong because I've
Right.
also done it, though my family did follow me, which is its own funny story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a culture that doesn't even consider that
Mm, mm-hmm.
unless the family agreeably says, this is a chance to elevate our whole family generation if we send so and so to Germany to university.
Mm.
But in doing that, they're moving the team forward, not one person.
Right. Right.
We, as a North American culture, are not quite as centered that way. And there's a part of it I find uh, so magical and so heartwarming and so rare and kind.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, I feel a tangent coming on, but I'm gonna keep it on track. Okay, so I felt it. Um,
I'm okay with tangents.
well, so I was talking with some friends of mine, literally just yesterday, and we were talking about how different just North America and specifically the United States is in terms of lifestyle and culture from everyone else. Like if you go over to Europe, how relaxed and happy and stress-free everyone is because they don't put hustle and grinding and work first. Like it's not a 40,
No.
48 hour, 80-hour work week. No one's like running and rushing to get places. Like it's, and to try to live that, because I did, to try to live that lifestyle here, it just even feels there's so much pressure. I remember trying to do that and feeling such pressure that I would be looked upon as either lazy or shiftless or just what is it, not driven, not ambitious enough. And it's crazy.
Yeah, and we've created, you nailed one word there, which is not driven. We've made that a barometer for success
Mm-hmm.
instead of creating a balanced life platform. That's what should be successful. I have
Yes.
time for my family and I have time to contribute to society and I have time to make a living that helps me do both of those things successfully.
Yes. And speaking about what you do for a living, directing, can we go back and look at little Ruby Monroe? Would little Ruby
Um,
Monroe expect to see later Ruby Monroe and say, "Whoa, I knew that was going to happen"? Or would she be completely surprised?
there's two versions of Little Ruby Monroe. There's the little one that grew up in an era where girls weren't allowed to have dreams.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Girls dreamt if they did have dreams, they were very much the Beauty and the Beast dream, where you dreamt of meeting your Prince Charming, and that was what was going to make your life everything you thought it would be.
Mm.
Then there was the older one, the teenage one that was like, wait a second, I don't think that's right. I see cracks in this plan. But anyway, the little Ruby Monroe is the storyteller. The little Ruby Monroe grew up in a tiny town where we didn't have television, which is crazy since I make television for a living.
Right.
Um, I know, right? We had a bookmobile. That's how small the town was. The bookmobile came through. It was a bus loaded with books. I know. And it came through every 3 weeks. And the most you could take was 3 books. And the bookmobile, I guess, librarian driver got to know me pretty well and broke all the rules and let me sometimes take 6 books a week.
Oh, I love that.
Voracious reader to this day. Like the stacks of books in my office are kind of crazy. But again, Japanese culture tells you that stacks of books unread is one of the healthiest things you can do for yourself. So I'm winning. Um, I know. It means you have plans and goals and dreams.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was allowed to read a lot. And in that, I created visuals. I grew up in a tiny town. I didn't have anything other than National Geographics as my sort of representation for the outside world.
Mm.
Um, so I would read a book, and if I just finished a book on Nigeria, everything I would read in that book would be sort of patterned with the images from that edition of National Geographic. So, I get into my teens. I started to travel. My dad was a photojournalist, so I had a camera since I was tiny, like
Wow.
learned how to, see the world through a lens. So as I started to travel in my early teens, and I learned to see so many other cultures, even a culture similar to mine in a town, 50 miles away could feel different,
Mm.
could function differently. People could
Mm-hmm.
dress differently. So my stories, as I read books, my visual vocabulary became that much more expansive. And to this day, I travel a lot. I think it's the greatest education anybody can have. And that as a parent, it's the greatest education you can give your children. I feel sorry for people that don't have the monetary position in life to make those things happen, because we're
Yeah.
a better world for understanding. But so to this day, anytime I read, because I read so many scripts right now, I make movies as I read them. I
Mm.
have no way of not creating a movie when I read something.
Mm.
So funny story though, my dad taught me to read when I was young. I was about 4.5 and I was quite literate. And the first book he ever gave me, and most people don't even know this exists, Alfred Hitchcock's Stories for Children.
Whoa.
Right, right. 4.5-year-old me reading horror stories, written written for children. Just think that through for a minute. The second book he gave me was Edgar Allan Poe's poetry collection, The Raven.
Oh my God.
Right. So I find this very contradictory place in my life where I'm directing Hallmark. And I can literally read a Hallmark script and turn it into a black comedy.
Oh my gosh.
I know, because my head wants to go to that depth of storytelling where there's a lot more psychology that goes into it.
Yeah.
And Hallmark, as we all know and love, doesn't have quite that depth. It's a little lighter.
Yeah.
So it's a yeah. So young Ruby's grown up to be something quite different. She grew up in a world where dreams were impossible unless you dreamt of being a fantastic, fantastic housewife, which isn't the worst thing in the world, by the way. It just wasn't me.
Hmm.
I've been that. I succeeded, but I did it well trying to build dreams and showing my son that you can dream anything you want and make it happen. Maybe not in the same time frame you thought it was going to happen, but you can make it happen. So my dream is about 27 years behind, but it's there.
Yeah. And you're doing
I just
it.
took a time out to be a housewife and a mom and,
Yeah.
that kind of awesome contribution to the planet. But, you know, you go back and you think, if nobody told me I couldn't be anything, when would I have started telling stories? Right?
Yeah, that was actually what I was going to ask you because as I've been doing these interviews, the theme of storytelling has been coming up time and time again. And it's so interesting that through costume designing and production design and even set photography that I'm able to hear and see this theme of storytelling come to life through these different perspectives. So I'm curious for you, Ruby, when did that light go off for you? A, that you love storytelling, and B, that you loved it through a film perspective in general.
I was 10 years old, and on Sunday nights, we had a television with just limited access. I was allowed to watch either the news, David Suzuki, or The Wonderful World of Disney.
Oh,
And that particular week, Dad had said you can all watch TV Sunday. And I was, this is great. And for once, we all agreed. There was three of us kids, and we agreed on The Wonderful World of Disney. And I won't remember the name of the project right now, but it starred Jodie Foster,
mm.
who is exactly my age, and our birthdays are only a few days apart. And I was in love, like
Oh,
absolutely in love. I was in love with her. I was in love with the idea that there was a girl my age who was out there telling stories, like part of a story.
yeah.
And I was like, how do we get there? How do I get there? And it was the same year we moved from a small town to a big city. And I was like, I think I can make this happen. I didn't know anything about film production. I just knew I had to tell stories. And that eventually I was going to find my way
Mm.
onto the other side of a camera, which is oddly how I started. I was in front of the camera, where I rapidly realized I was not very comfortable. I was
Mm.
very introverted, which I'm certainly not now. And it was too inquisitive and too prying for the introvert to be on that side of it. So,
Mm.
um, through different situations in my life, I wound up behind the camera, in a different role. I think the director, and built a career on that where I could find my voice and ultimately go to school while doing a job I loved. I got to watch the production designers you talk about and the costume designers that, bring characters to life. And I got to watch all the other directors and go, that's interesting. And
Mm.
producers, why they picked projects, how they defended things about them. So I all the while going, waiting for my moment, waiting for my moment, waiting for my moment. So it takes some time, but it's there
Yeah.
if you want it.
Now, did you go to school for film or was it for something different?
I
Oh.
did not go to school beyond high school because, again, as a woman in that era,
Mm.
um, university was not imagined for girls, not in
Yeah.
my family.
Yeah.
You were supposed to be a housewife by 19 and not earlier. It's a bit different. Not saying it's wrong, just saying it
Sure.
wasn't my bag. And I think that women are allowed to create their own journeys without being told
Yeah.
they fit in the box. So no, I didn't go to university. I was very self-motivated when I left high school. I
Oh.
was 17 and I got three different jobs thinking I could, learn, learn, learn. And I did. I wound up in the music industry for a long time, which is its own fun journey for me. And I wound up modeling, and modeling is what put me in front of the camera, which put me on a film set.
Mm. Wow.
And then
So,
once I got on a film, yeah, I got
mm-hmm.
on a film set as an actress,
Mm-hmm.
as an extra. which turned into a couple of acting roles. And then I went, I can't do this. I'm not.
Mm.
I didn't even like modeling, but modeling paid well, and I was trying to build a dream. So I could sacrifice the shyness to put some money in the bank. But it was a brutal industry that I didn't gravitate towards the dangerous aspect of that industry. I don't know what it's like anymore, but I don't think it's probably changed that much. Not when you look at what's expected of models and how they have to represent society. So
Yeah.
I found that painfully difficult. But once I could get in front of the camera and figure out that I didn't want to be there, there was no unions back in this era, and there are now. So I suspect it's a little bit harder path. I know a bit about it, but only the Canadian side of how people would get in now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak to anything in the US because the unions are so different. But at that time, they had, and they still do, there's a fantastic job on set for anybody that wants to learn. It's a job called a stand-in. And in old Hollywood, they were called lighting dummies. So every set had lighting dummies. And there were people that, looked enough like an actor or an actress. So maybe a skin tone, hair color, height, those things, so that they could rehearse a scene with the cast, let the cast go, bring in the lighting dummies, and we would mirror all of those actions. We would walk around the set, stop in the same spots, and they would light using us. They would set up the camera positions. Then when the cast was ready, we'd get released and they'd come in. So for me, I just never left set. First of all, I'm a stand-in lighting dummy, and I'm watching all the decisions get made.
Mm.
I've watched the actors rehearse the scene and figure it out. So then when I wasn't needed, I would just stand behind the camera and watch what worked, what didn't work, what did they have to change, why didn't the director like that performance. So I stayed in that job for 2 years until I couldn't learn anymore from that position. And I'd been able to witness a film set certainly long enough to know what jobs were really interesting to me and would lead me to eventually be in that position where I got to be the person that said, action cut, that's fantastic, we got it.
Mm.
That job was the script supervisor. So if you're watching film credits, you'll see script supervisor or continuity supervisor. They're the same thing. Each local in the unions has a different way of articulating it in the credits, but it's the same job. And essentially what you do, your position, you work with the director and the actors, but you work for the director and the editors.
Mm.
So you're responsible for every piece of the puzzle. So if a script is like a jigsaw puzzle, but you haven't put the pieces together yet, you're responsible for collecting all the pieces of the puzzle and saying, this piece fits together, but it doesn't fit together with that one. If you want these two to fit together, then you need this one. Or that take is a good one, but it doesn't puzzle up to this. So we are the keepers of all the information.
Mm.
We are the voice, particularly in episodic television, though sometimes even in features, depending on a director, that interacts the most with the cast. So Brooke picks up a coffee cup, but it's in the wrong hand because in the wide shot, it was in this hand. So my script supervisor in this case would go in and say, Brooke, next take, would you mind putting it in this hand? So it's as simple as the continuity aspect of it as it is going in and saying, you said on the last take, and what you need to say is the book is different than a book. Because the book is maybe what that story's written around, such as A Fabled Holiday was written around a storybook. So you couldn't call it a book.
Mm.
It was the book. So it's all those little nuances that go into creating character, creating story, creating something that the audience their brain doesn't trip over it. That was an amazing job. And I did that for a very long time. And that was another version of film school, because all I did was participate and help and watch. I learned how to talk to actors. I learned how to understand when a camera position wasn't helping tell a story. I learned how to talk to the costume designer and say, why did they put them in purple? Or why is this layered? Or why did you put feathers on that hat? Why? Same with hair and makeup artists. Why did you design the person to be this way, like more Barbie dollish or more this or more that? And they would all have their own reasons for having helped create that character in that vein. It's kind of like taking all the Barbies from when you were little and all the cut-out clothes and everything else,
Yes.
and then filming with your like make-believe camera. except it's all real. It's all real. And there's living, breathing people who all around you want to collaborate and make something that makes an audience cry, smile, jump for joy, any range of emotions you can think of.
Do you find that because of you having that script supervisor background that it makes it easier for you to communicate with all departments as a director when you're on set?
Absolutely. And in conversations I've recently had with producers, they're very much leaning into now hiring script supervisors as directors because
Mm,
of how we have participated. We're so responsible to the editor for making sure a director has all the pieces. Because as a director, you can also get so mired in something you don't see it.
mm-hmm.
Maybe your AD reminded you, or you got reminded of the time space continuum running out and you didn't get the shot you needed. And so you've got a script supervisor there to say, if we're running out of time and we're not going to get this shot, what if we get this and this only? At least the story's there. So we can see the whole picture. The good ones can see the entire scope of what the director needs to achieve. I can't see your director's vision, but I can see what you need to tell the story.
Mm,
And I
mm,
can tell you whether you have it or not because of the level of my experience. I can say to a director, not now, but in my past career, I could say, do you think you have that moment? And they'd say, what moment? I said, well, right here it says, this is where this moment tips and she realizes blah, blah, blah. Do you have that? And they'd be like, oh, maybe I don't. So you're the devil's advocate all the time. You're not
okay.
trying to be right. You're trying to be completely supportive to the process of the story, right? Do you think that your actor nailed that one thing? Because if they hit that one word, maybe that would help. Oh, that's a good idea. So then I go in and I say to a cast member, what if you just hit this one word? Great, let's try that. So you're essentially in so many projects you are it's a very small scale down subtle version of directing.
Wow.
And now networks are starting to realize the value of it. I mean, episodic primarily because, in the old days, we would do 20 episodes of a season of something. So
Right,
I would be there for 20 episodes. I would know the cast like they were my best friends. A
right,
director comes in for 8 days. Who knows the cast better?
right,
Who knows the story better? So
right.
now in episodic, they're giving script supervisors a lot more opportunity to move up into the directing chair, which is great. And even networks like Hallmark are so generous. There's quite a few of us. There's 3 of us from Vancouver alone, script supervisors that have become directors all through Hallmark.
That is lovely.
So they're seeing the advantage of somebody showing up on the shooting floor who already knows the process. And as you said, Dara, I already know how to talk to every department. I know what their roles intrinsically are. I know the challenges of those roles because I've sat with them as a crew member. I know what makes it easy. I know what makes it hard. I know how much information they need ahead of time to nail that thing. A director suddenly goes, I just had this idea just now.
Mm-hmm.
So I we're just valuable. We're keepers of a lot of stuff. And we're usually fast thinkers and we have the process nailed down. So I'm
That's
just
so
glad people are
wonderful.
finally figuring it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of my peers deserve the same opportunity, but not everybody wants it. I've wanted it for as long as I can remember. I had a chance in 1994 to direct, and I didn't realize at the time that it was never going to come back. I didn't realize that the people I was working with were so unique in that era of wanting to give women opportunities.
Yeah.
And the show I was on, a director had fallen out. They'd had something unfortunate happen to them and couldn't come in for the next episode. And they offered the chance to me on a Friday afternoon. And I had to give them an answer by Monday morning. And we were shooting nights and I came home and I was fully dressed sitting on my sofa when my 4-year-old came in and asked if we were going camping. And I said, of course we are. And I went camping in the rain. It was a fantastic weekend. And I realized that as a single parent, I was never going to be able to do that once I said yes to directing because you work 24/7.
Mm.
And I did the smartest, kindest thing I could do is I picked I picked a lovely young man named Jordan. And, but I didn't think it would take 27 more years to open the door. And what opened the door is Me Too.
Mm.
Yes, for so many women to be seen.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for all those people that use their voice. I hope everybody gets to benefit, men and women alike, all the genders get to benefit from this openness of the dialogue that's come about.
Yes.
There's some incredibly talented people that deserve to be doing bigger, better things.
Yes. And I can feel that as
Part of
your
my
passion. Yeah. 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 Yes, indeed.
yeah,
Yes, indeed.
yeah. And you don't think about it. You think, oh, it's just a simple no, and this will happen again. And then you realize the kind of world you're working in. You're like, it's not actually going to happen. Oh, maybe next year.
Mm.
Next year. No, maybe next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, as I said to everybody at Rama Drama who asked the same question, never, ever, ever give up. Find your people, build your posse, be strong, and be strong for other people, not just yourself. Build everybody around you up.
Yes.
Just help. Help build dreams, help create dreams, help bring them to life, not just for you. If you just do it for you, it's not quite the same satisfaction as when you see it happen for other people.
I can
In the
attest to
world we're in now, I look at the film crews we work with, and we get the chance to have female director of photographies.
that. Mm.
Females aren't just costume designers anymore. I had coffee before this podcast with my friend Margot Reddy, who is the production designer on Yellow Jackets, if you've watched it, and about to be put up for an Emmy for that. Like, but these are roles that were so conventionally given over to men, and it wasn't nothing against men. I mean, my own partner is fantastic director, Terry Ingram, but they were exclusively given to men. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
given to women. You had to fight and fight and fight to get there. And now I see this openness that is allowing a lot more opportunity. And what I want to see as this adventure goes on is the pendulum finally not be just trying to service diversity in women, but actually landing in a place where the best person gets the job, the talented person, without caring what we look like, what age we are, what our backstory is, any of that, just simply
Exactly.
based on, are you a good fit for this? And that's everywhere in life. That's not just film. But what I'd like to do through film is help move that story forward.
Mm. So let's get into with film and being a director. What what does your journey look like when you see a movie has been greenlit and you're notified that you're going to be the director on the project? What does that process look like after that?
Well, after you finish jumping up and down, you mean? Maybe opening a bottle of champagne. I don't know.
Yes,
Um, you
celebration. Absolutely.
you probably read the script already. Every now and then you get handed an opportunity to direct something because things get greenlit right out of the blue. It's not happened to me yet, but I know that this last January for Terry, he got a call on a Thursday saying, "Are you working?" And he said, "Well, I don't think so. We should really check with my agent." And Saturday night during dinner, he got a call to say you have a job, and he never saw a script. So it
Wow.
does happen, but normally you're given a script and you have a chance to read it and really sort of ingest it. And you usually have a chance to talk to the production company so that they know that you have a vision that they can wrap their heads around.
Mm.
So you're not pitching, but you are identifying that you can relate to the story in a way that's going to bring it to life. So usually you've got some idea that there's somebody's looking at you. You're not like, you're not, it's a bit probably like online dating. Somebody, I've had 6 views today.
Yeah.
But we have a little more of the inside track than that. Like somebody's, but you don't know if they're looking at 6 other directors as well. You have no idea.
Mm. Okay.
Every time you read a script, you want to invest in, this is a story I want to tell, but you don't want to overinvest in case a directing friend phones and goes, "Hey, I got a great job. It starts Monday." And you're like, "Awesome." Congratulations. That happens too, because we cheerlead each other. We're not mean. We're like, okay, go sister, go. It's really true. But no, once you get that phone call and you put your glass of champagne down, it depends how the project's been structured. There's usually a service production company attached already.
Okay.
So an intermediary between your studio and yourself. So they will put a crew in place for you. They'll say, either here's your production designer and your DP and your costume designer, or you might have a choice of people you work with. But those would be the first three people that you would identify with and build a dialogue with. So the production designer helps you go scouting for locations, because those locations help tell your story.
Sure. Yeah.
A big house versus a little house, a quaint neighborhood versus palatial estates. These are all different storytelling models. High rises versus small towns, right?
Yeah.
They're all constructions in the story that I'm going to unfold for you. And they go on the scouts with you. Your costume designer gets involved as soon as you have a cast. Sometimes you have a say in your cast, sometimes you don't. It all depends how studio contracts on that side have been negotiated. Are they indebted to somebody for 2 more films? Is this the right fit for that person? Then you get to cast your smaller roles. So then your costume designer gets involved, talking about, is there a visual palette you like? So Fabled Holiday, we had 3 worlds to play in. We had the world where they're young. So it's, we played that as the early 90s. Then we go into we go into current universe, so 2022 in this case. So very contemporary look. And then they land in fairy tale world. And as somebody who really whose visual vocabulary identifies with the 70s, all those beautiful saturated rich colors and flowy things. And my costume designer, Neil Drummond, and I got along very well. And I brought up, why don't we make the Fabled world? Because we don't want to attach it to an era per se, because it has to have existed forever in our imaginations. But why don't we give it this vibe? Particularly the woman that runs the inn, and the costumes we were able to create that just gave her so much more personality. Rochelle was an amazing actress, but you put somebody in clothes, and as you're wearing a hoodie right now, you probably feel really comfortable. If somebody put you in a gown right now, you'd be like, depends what your vibe is, right? Like, I'm always in shirts with collars that button down. It's just my thing. But you put me in a hoodie and I'd be like, so costumes not only allow a cast member to be comfortable enough to create that character, they help that character.
Yeah.
So if I put somebody in a hoodie, I might be expecting something different out of them in that moment than if I put them in the ball gown.
Right.
I might be expecting you to be more Cinderella in this story than somebody who's very consistent. So all of these little elements are part of our storytelling tools, and the 3 of us work. And the director of photography is the other one. He or she, I say he because my last one was a he. They help you again define the visual template. So is this the palette we want? A soft blue wall with lots of travel, like little bits. Like, how are we going to light it? Do we want it to be things to pop? So again, Fabled Holiday is a great example. In our child world, everything pops. It's bright. It's bright. It's the world of children. And then we go into the contemporary world. She runs a bookstore. We want it to look like she's thriving. So again, things have a lot more color in them. That's a combination of the production designer and the cinematographer. Do we want soft lighting? Is it night lighting? Is it morning lighting? All of these things. Do we want the person to really show up? Do we want them to be soft? All of that stuff. So everybody, all 3 of these roles, along with the director, are sculpting everything that you're going to see and sculpting the experience that we want you to feel. So I can have a DP look at me and say, do you want to dial the lighting back on this a bit so that we have somewhere to go? Because this scene, we come back to the scene 4 minutes later. I'm like, that's a great idea. Why don't we do that? So we'll start with something soft and we'll build. Or you'll have a story element that Fabled Holiday is another great example, where when they arrive there, we don't want to give away that we're in a holiday, we're in a magical world. So things aren't quite surreal. And as we go through it, we see more things like more fairy lights, and
Mm.
more soft, effervescent things. And we start to let we start to let the magic open up a bit. And that's a combination of the director and the DP. All the things you think don't happen.
This is wild, and I love it, and it
Right?
makes me happy just hearing
And,
about it.
and each of those departments has countless departments beneath them that are helping make those things happen.
Wow.
They're just the three major departments
Yeah.
that work under me. I mean, how honored am I that I get to look at these three amazingly talented department heads and say, this is what I'm hoping you can all do for me.
Mm.
Because I show up with a vision. I
Yeah.
don't show up going, hey, what do you guys think we're going to do? I show up and I say, well, I see three separate worlds, and this is the vibe I'd like here. This is the vibe I'd like there. Now let's collaborate and see if we can all get on the same page, or if you have an idea that can open up something I haven't thought of yet. Because that's also really cool,
Mm.
right? It's the same as if you've never traveled. You don't know what India looks like. You don't know what it feels like, right?
Right.
So if I've never been in a magical world, it's in my imagination, which I happen to think is a great place in my head. But I have three other people I have access to who also have brilliant imaginations. So what makes mine the best one? Or
Mm.
why wouldn't I just sit there and say, well, how do you guys see Wonderbrook?
Yeah.
Right. And then together we're all like, well, I have this idea, I have this, I have this, like this. And as a director, you have the supreme power. You can say, I love that idea. I don't think it's the right idea for right now. Let's circle back and see if we can put it in another part in the script. But wow, do I like the way you think? The
Mm.
job is never ever to shut anybody down creatively. It's to embrace that we all come at it from a unique position of what we've seen in the world, what we've experienced, what we've read. Um, and to find a way to share it and create the best possible outcome without anybody's ego being the only one that gets to be like nailed.
Right. Right.
Cool, right?
So cool. So
I know.
okay, it's day
I
one on
know. I
set,
love it.
right? Like it's day one on set. You open your
Uh-huh.
eyes. It's let's just say it's a bright, cheery morning, and it's day one. So what does a day on set look like for you as a director?
I'd say for a large part, most days the same, but day one's critical.
Mm,
In the world of Hallmark stories, we shoot them in usually 15 days, which is
mm,
hard for anybody, I think, to imagine. I know it's hard for me to imagine.
yeah.
But in order to make them successful, we typically have one location that we anchor ourselves to and then several small ones.
Okay.
And that allows the budget to go further. We're not moving the company so much, which always costs money. And we have one central place in the story that helps people also launch from.
Mm,
So it could be a family house or a hotel or something to that effect. So
mm,
day one, Fabled Holiday is a great example. So day one, we start in a house that we shot in for 10 days. And we use the grounds around that house also to create our festival environment. It's a
yeah.
beautiful property. But you go in your first day, usually 2 hours before you start work. And a film day is 12 hours long, work hours. That does not include lunch. And that's only in the world of projects like Hallmark and Lifetime. Studio shows are 14 days long, network shows.
Ooh.
Yeah. And that's working hours. That's what you do on set. That's not the work you take home. So as a director, I go in 2 hours beforehand. I want to see the set that my production designer has created after we've done all the scouts and said, yeah, I want the circle of chairs over here. They should all be red. Let's make sure we have the Christmas pillows. Now, we're going to start in this room. So we're going to need this set up, this. And I need to make sure the set feels right visually for me and for my actors who've never seen it before and have no idea what my vision is.
Mm,
And they're going to walk in and know that this is 10 days of their storytelling time is spent here. And I have to create an environment where they're excited to come in and play in this space.
mm-hmm.
Right. So I go in and before the crew ever gets there, let's move this over here. Let's make sure we've cleared this out of the way. Oh, I did ask for that one thing. I don't see it. Can we just make sure it's showing up? All of the things so that when your crew shows up, you're ready. You're not trying to figure it out. You know how you're going to welcome them to your 15-day party. You know the gratitude that you want to show them because that's going to come back to you. And it's going to show up on screen, which I wholly believe. The moments that we create that are so team-based, the projects are always better than if we just puppet people around and people don't feel valued. I think that's fair and true of life in general. So you welcome your crew, you explain who you are. If you feel that's important, I always do, because I want people to feel comfortable coming and talking to you about anything. Yeah. I want them to know they can come to me with an idea, even though they're, way down tiny on the bottom of my call sheet, which is the document we use to inform what our day is about and who's working with us that day. I want everybody to know they can be heard in the world that is my creative playground. Then we welcome our cast to set and we start rehearsing. Sometimes we have 8 scenes in a day, sometimes there's 12, sometimes there's 3. But they all fill the 12 hours, I can assure you. So we welcome our cast to set, and any introductions required are done. We usually let them figure out the environment they're in, especially if it's a big house. If it's one room, it's one room. I can say this room attaches to, when you leave here, this is where you go. Don't worry about that. It's in a different building, or it's in a. For now, this is our play space. And then we rehearse. And rehearsing for us is it starts with reading a scene off a page so that we get the words out, especially when we're day 1 and day 2, even when we're really new to each other. Actors, believe it or not, can also be nervous. They're not all extreme extroverts. They can also be like, and that goes for the big names as well as the, what we call the day players, which are the ones that come in and they do all those really important but lesser noticed roles. So we give everybody a chance to read the words and feel comfortable with them and ask questions if the words aren't making sense. What if I change this to this? What if? Have you thought about that? So we go through that, and then we do what we call blocking it, which is without any emotion, regardless of what the scene is. We do it without emotion. We walk through, this is your room. Ideally, from a lighting point of view, Brooke, if you could wind up sitting on the bed right about here, it would help us for coverage. So as a director, I give those little things that I hope for, because they either cement something in my story that's going to pay off later, or they help keep my day manageably tight, which is important to my director of photography, to my producer, to my AD. And we try to get into those positions. So there's a little bit of, I hate to say puffing, but there's a little bit of give and take. Yeah. And sometimes an actor will say, I can't get there on that line. Can I change the line? And you can say, well, maybe. No, this line can't be changed because it pays off somewhere. You can say, okay, but to be motivated to move here. Oh yeah, I can make that work. Okay, cool. I can make that work too. So it's the blocking is the dance of the words and what you need to achieve in that time. If it's a 3/8 of a page scene, which is really short, script pages are measured in inches. For those of you who don't know, a standard page is 11 inches long. There's a 2-inch header and a 1-inch footer, and the 8 inches in between are measured in 8ths. So every single thing we do in film is measured in 8ths of a page. So if I said to my production designer, it's only 3/8 of a page, I don't need to spend a lot of time on this. That means it's small. It's probably not significant in my story. But if I'm spending 35 pages in a house, how big is that set? How important is every detail of that set to me?
Yeah.
So it's the same when we're blocking a scene. This is 3/8 of a page. I don't want to do more than like a little master and 2 pieces of coverage. Let's figure this out really fast. Versus getting into a scene that's 3.5 pages and there's emotional things happening and somebody has to enter and somebody has to leave and somebody cries and there's tissues and there's hugs. And now I want to spend a day. I want to spend half a day on that. I want us to breathe through and make sure we get all the little bits right. So part of your directing job is managing that time space thing where you say, this isn't a part we need to die on. This is just getting information out to the audience so they know what's happening next, or it makes sense what just happened. But this isn't This is a connective tissue. It's a nut and bolt piece.
Yeah.
It's not the big construction. It's not the big house we're building.
Yeah.
So that's a huge, and so we do that all day with every single scene. Every single scene.
Wow. So
Yeah.
with that, because you and I, we had a chance to connect at Rama Drama Christmas in Chicago, where fans or enthusiasts of Hallmark movies, we got together and actually got to watch your movie, A Fabled Holiday, and you were there with us as we watched it. What was that? Because not that rarely ever happens. I feel like for
It
directors.
it never
Yeah.
happens. It never happens. And now like the coincidental part about that weekend, I think you know this story, Dara, but I'll share just in case. When this came around, I was doing what is called ADR, which is a post-production thing we do to correct dialogue where it's too noisy and we have to take some things out. So in this case, I was doing ADR with Ryan Pavey, who was my lovely number two. And Ryan said to me at the end of ADR, he said, "Are you going to be at Rama Drama?" And I said, "What's Rama Drama? I don't know what this is." And he says, "You don't know?" He said, "But Tyler Hines is going to be there." Well, Terry, my partner, had just worked with Tyler Hines. And I was like, "Oh, well, I guess we'll just call Tyler and ask." So I get off the Zoom with Ryan. Tyler, and he goes, "Oh yeah, Rama Drama is this thing, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, Terry says, "Why are you going?" And he says, "Well, they're screening Three Wise Men and a Baby on Saturday morning." So I phone Ryan. I go, um, "Are you going because they're doing Fabled Holiday?" He goes, "Yeah, Friday night." What? It wasn't even going to air until December 3rd, the Saturday night on Hallmark. And they offered it up to be screened to a live audience before it ever went on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, Terry and I, as partners, by complete fluke, both our films were there.
Yes.
Like we still pinch ourselves. We talk about it almost every day. We're really funny. We're really cute together about it. We're like, hey, we got all dressed up. So lovely, but nobody, there's nobody we know. Like, and we know people who've won Oscars. We know people that are, several Emmys, and none of these people saw their projects with an audience.
Mm.
I mean, if they did, they'd seen their project several times and maybe went to a theater like and went, "Oh, wonder what it feels like now." For me, mine had not been seen by anybody except Hallmark.
Mm.
I hadn't even seen what Hallmark had done with the finished product, because as a director, there's a certain point where you hand it off. You do a director's cut, then there's a producer's cut, then, and then it goes through, it gets locked and it goes into the music world and the color timing world. And you might get a cut back to see before it airs. In this case, I didn't.
Mm.
So the last cut I ever saw of it was mine. So to see it at all is this thing like where you sit back and you think, am I going to love it as much as what I created after they've done their flourishes and their finessing, or maybe they've changed something that'll break my heart. Because that does happen.
Yeah.
Always shoot more material than is necessary so that a story can be crafted and sometimes tightened up, sometimes loosened up, sometimes made a bit more magical, but you never shoot exactly what you need because you've given yourself no breathing space
Mm.
to make something better or more interesting. So I had no idea what to expect. And then to watch it for the first time in front of people, I sat at the very back of the room so that I could see body language.
Mm.
And I watched people like reach for their tissues. I watched them reach for friends' hands. I watched them lean on someone's shoulder. I watched them go,
Mm.
all the things that, and I could hear it as well. I could hear the audience's reaction, the sighs, the sniffles, all those like, "Oh wow, it's happening. Oh my gosh, they kissed," like whatever it is. But the physicality of watching it is what I will never forget. If you turned off all the sound and all I had was watching people do this or grab someone's hand or look at a friend, in awe, in awe, in awe. I hope every storyteller in the world gets to hear their book read out loud and be witness to that, or see their film in front of a brand new audience. It's magical. I don't know if you feel that way about your podcast, Dara, but I just, you give birth to something and you want to see if everybody likes it.
Yes.
Maybe you're a knitter me and you've made something and you give it to somebody and you wait for that reaction. Did they love it as much as I loved making it? I gave away a baby blanket to my cousin yesterday, and it was like, and right at the wrong time, the dog barked. I was like, Jonah, she's like, I really like it. And I'm like, it's not what I was expecting. But the dog was having a meltdown.
No, but you're so right. I published a book a couple of years ago, and it was my
Really?
first like major fiction work. And I remember my dad, God bless my dad, he just bought it like a couple months ago. But he told me.
That's funny.
But my dad is a math guy. To his defense, like he's a math guy. He's all like
Yeah.
shapes, numbers, and so I didn't expect him to even get it at all. But I just found it funny. And the fact that he told me, he said, and he's even though he's a math guy, he can be very kind of straight laced. When he's passionate about something, and I think that's where I get my theatrics from. Like he's very much
Right.
he's animated.
Right.
So
Right.
he said, Dara, are you working on another one? Because when I was reading this, I mean, I was in it. And he like lunged forward in his chair. And I said,
That's amazing.
Dad, this coming from Mr. Algebra? Like I was taken aback. I was just like to hear like to see how people relate to your words and relate to scenes that were once up here in your imagination, which is also my favorite place to be too. I love it. And he to see people interact with language and dialogue and setting and scenes that I've crafted to tell this story that's so close to my heart,
Right.
and to see how it relates to people, I completely agree. It's something it's sometimes hard to put into words because it's like it really is a piece of yourself that you're giving to the world and you're saying
But
here.
maybe we don't have to, like the way you just went, about your dad. Like that to me, just like, there doesn't need to be a word, like just the look on your face, that gratitude that somebody that's important to you in made the time to invest in it and then to love it and give you enthusiastic feedback and like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm spoiled now because it happened, reasonably early in my career.
Mm,
I say that because I expect to have a long career. I'm building that one. What if it never happens again?
mm,
You have to trust your instinct. Like you're going to have to. You'll read it. You'll write another book, and
yeah.
you have to trust your publisher, which in my case is my producer. Like you have to trust the people around you to say, "Yeah, you did good. It's okay. You did good." But when you see it, and you know you did good, there's nothing like it. It's like your dad. There's nothing that can equal that. Nothing.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
no, no. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how I'm ever going to do it. Maybe something I direct this year will go to Rama Drama again. I won't have to wonder.
Oh, first of all,
Come back to Rama Drama.
yes. Oh, we need you at
Maybe I'll
Ramadan now.
just phone the team up and go, I just finished one.
Yes.
You got to ask Hallmark for this one.
Yes. Put a bug in their ear like this is the movie you want to screen.
Right?
Yes.
Well, Jennifer, Jennifer Hearts of Stars will definitely try to
Yes.
get me there.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, I don't know how you do it after you've had that. It's like I have friends that have won Oscars, and And how do you design when you think you've peaked?
Mm,
How do you design when you wonder if you'll ever have a script that elevates your work that way again?
mm.
Right? I don't know.
I guess that I
About to
would,
find out.
yeah, I was going to say, I think that then it would speak to what motivates you to ultimately do what you do, because
That's what it is.
is it for awards? Like, is you getting an Oscar
Never.
or a Pulitzer in
No.
my case? Like, is that the peak, or it's like what? Because there has to be something deeper. I feel like to keep you going.
For me, I would say that since I can identify being 14.
Mm,
And only because I got asked this the other day. And I started doing volunteer work at the age of 14. I do not know why. I don't know what, I can't find a trigger. I know there was a lot of trauma in my life at the time,
mm,
but what possessed me to do the kind of volunteer work I was doing, I don't know. And to this day, I'm a massive volunteer. And at the end of it, what drives that is my desire to be a positive contribution to the world, and to
mm,
know that how I'm going out in the world and playing is making is making a positive difference somewhere.
yeah.
Every single thing I do. It doesn't matter whether I run two knitting clubs. We knit for charities. It's what we do. Or we knit blankets for disenfranchised homeless people here in Vancouver. There's all kinds of machinations in what I do, but it's not just to give the blanket away. It's so I can go down and participate in that neighborhood and figure out, what else do we do in that neighborhood to resurrect hope, to give opportunity, to get people into a better situation. It's just one avenue in for me. So um doesn't matter to me what kind of story I'm telling. And it's one of the blessings of being in the Hallmark family, in the Hallmark universe, is these stories are meant to move us forward. Maybe not in giant leaps and bounds, because
Yeah.
they haven't quite embraced that size of story yet, but they're moving fantastically well in that direction. And if all I can do is open the eyes of a few people um, to know that there's positive outcomes to dark times in life,
Mm,
that you can survive this even if you don't think you can, then I'm winning in what I'm doing in life. I don't need any award ever, ever. I think about the number of people at Rama Drama that I have beautiful conversations with, who spoke to just how inspiring I was in one evening, in terms of them being able to see themselves at the age they were at. And most of these people that had this conversation with me, I would say, in the neighborhood of 50-ish, and had dreams that maybe had been dashed by relationships, family things, health issues, job crises, the world at large, which is hard for all of us to manage these days with the sad things and dangerous things that go on out there.
yeah.
And find a project and or a person that can spark a new way of you feeling about it or looking at it. If you can do that for one person, you're winning. You're winning. And the world's winning because you're trying to do it for even one person.
Man.
That'll always be my reward. Always. If I can
Yeah.
make one person feel better, then I'm ahead of the game. Gonna make me cry. Sorry.
Ruby Munro. I wish we had 6 hours, but
A
we don't.
tiny bit of a marshmallow. Just a tiny bit.
Oh, Ruby. So if
Okay,
you
say something that's gonna make me stop crying now, Dora.
So I want to end on this note because I think this would segue perfectly for the women, because it is predominantly women who listen. Um, I don't want to negate the men, but I think just because of kind of your story and what we've been talking about, I do want to focus on the women for this, for the young lady who may be listening to this, and this conversation maybe sparked a desire in her to maybe want to pursue or find her avenue in the film industry through directing. What would you advise her to do?
Oh. I've said this many times in all of my meetings, including the one I had before this, is that networking is key. And I feel for the people that are really introverted, like I was when I was young, because
Mm,
had I not been such an introvert, my career would have probably taken off much earlier. Um, uh, but networking is your friend. Find people that think the way you think, find people that have drive, surround yourself by people that are willing to push you, that are assertive, that have accomplished things that you didn't think were possible, that maybe they didn't think were possible.
mm,
Make friends out of them, make allies out of them at every step of the way. That is what you need. You don't get anywhere by yourself. It doesn't matter if you're the director on a film set, you're a part of a team. If you're in a family, you're part of a team. And to get anywhere in life, you need those things. So pick the people around you, pick them carefully, make sure they're inspiring, they're encouraging, that they're assertive, that they're willing to challenge your dream, they're willing to challenge theirs and hold your hand and pull you behind them. Pick your people and make it a big group of people. The bigger the better. And you'd be surprised how many people one day will say, I remember her. Wow. We're looking for someone like that. It doesn't happen overnight. It might not happen for 3 months. It might be 3 years. And keep those relationships alive. Don't give up. Don't let them die. Buy cups of coffee for people if you can afford it. Sit in coffee shops. Talk to the stranger next door who looks like they're reading a script and go, hey, what are you reading? I'm in film. Anything you can. Go online. There's film communities online. As much as I'm not necessarily a fan of certain aspects of social media, there's a great value in a lot of it for finding your community
yeah.
and finding those people. There's a lot of women filmmaker groups out there, gender diverse groups out there that dialogue, and they're from all parts of the country. And I know even in Canada, the groups I belong to are represented all over the world. I was in a virtual production one last weekend where there was people from um, India, Germany, China, like it was all over the place. What social media has done is it shrunk our ability to network. We don't have to be where we can walk to the coffee shop anymore.
Right.
We can find that person who has a vision like we have, a story style that we want to embrace, that we want to expand on. Find your people and make it the thing you do. Put your phone down, stop sticking your head in Facebook because you're killing time. Use those moments to go online and mine for who those people are that you can build a relationship to because they're looking for you too.
Mm.
You're not alone. You are not alone. And
Oh,
we're all out there. Good ones of us, we're cheerleading everybody. We're not just trying to get up the ladder because getting up there by yourself, there's no reward. You want to be able to say, thanks, that was my friend there, and then watch where that friend goes. That feels good.
yes. Oh, I
But
feel
I
like I
got
just got a hug. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ruby. Oh, this was
I,
such a treat. This was such a treat. Is there a
you
website?
made it wonderful. It's
Oh,
on you. You asked fantastic questions.
thank
You
you.
make people feel special.
Because they
Thank you.
are. Because you guys are. Like, I'm a firm believer of praising and celebrating people's individuality and authenticity. And so that's what I want to do when I talk with people. I want to let them know, like, you're okay. Come on in, take a load off. There's a plate on the table for you. Like, that's really my goal.
I'm very much the same. I'm the person the number of people that call me up right now because the business is so quiet. And just want to have a coffee because I've done something I haven't done. And I literally every single day of my life, I'm in a coffee shop right now talking to somebody who wants to be where I am or wants to know how I got there or has a friend that has a friend or
Mm,
it's what we do,
mm, 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 mm.
right? Share your fortunes. We all have different fortunes. Share them.
Yes, yes. So, Ruby, if people want to get in contact with you or learn more about you, is there a social media handle or a website where they can go? To
I would go to Ruby J. Munro is my handle. It is actually my name on Instagram. I'm not awesome at Instagram. I will warn you all. I'm getting much better courtesy of people like Dara and Jennifer and the gals at Suspenders and Buttoned. I'm getting much better at it. But I would say that's the best place for me. I do check it every day and I do my best to answer all the messages that are there. And right now, because the business is quite quiet, I have a little more time. So reach out. And if I don't get to you right away, it's just because maybe too many people hit me up at one time. But I am happy to inspire. I don't know as much about how it is to get into certain unions and environments like that in America. Canada has its own policies and guilds, but the concept of networking and where you want to get doesn't change regardless of the infrastructure around it.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you, Ruby, so much for gracing us with your presence here at the home of Dear Hallmark. It's been such a treat, a delight, an honor, a privilege, all of those synonyms and adjectives
You're making
combined.
me blush, and now I'm like now I'm a teenage girl and I can't sit still because I'm all nervous.
Oh, well, you guys, if you want to find out more about Ruby Munro, do what she said and check out her social media handle. It'll be in the show notes if you're listening via podcast or the description box if you're watching via YouTube. Well, you all, she's Ruby and I'm Dara, and I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Ciao, my friends.
Love you all. Thanks, Dara.